Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a Magistus deck profile. So I'm really excited to do some for you guys because this deck was actually suggested to me by one of my patrons, Wesley. And Magistus is an extremely interesting deck because this deck is a bunch of different spellcaster archetypes mixed together to make one awesome deck. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of Notification Squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like getting your name description in a single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month you're a patron. And definitely give Wesley some love down in the comments down below for suggesting such an awesome deck. So let's get straight on into this one, guys. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Veer. Veer is definitely a 3-of in the build because this card has an extremely powerful effect. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add a Magistus spell or trap from your deck to your hand. We then play 3 copies of Zoroa. Zoroa is amazing because this card is actually a tuner and helps you go in for synchro plays with the ability that you can target a Magistus monster you control and equip it with one Magistus monster from your extract. And if this card becomes equipped with a Magistus monster card, then you can actually special summon a level 4 spellcaster monster from your hand or grave in defense position, which is a great ability just to get an additional monster out on your side of the field so you can go for level 8 synchro plays to go in for Zoroa's synchro form. We then play 3 copies of Crowley. Crowley is really cool as a 3-of extender in the build because this card has the ability you can send a spellcaster monster from your hand or face up from field to graveyard to be able to special summon this card from your hand, and then you can declare an attribute and this card's attribute becomes that attribute until the end of the turn, which usually you're turning this card into a water monster so you can go in for a copy of Bahamut Shark and then totally awesome. We then play 3 copies of Endymion. Endymion is really cool as a 3-of in the build because this card helps out a lot to help you dig into the deck because it has the ability to you can actually target a Magistus monster you control and equip it with one Magistus monster from your extract. And you can also target a face-up spell card you control and destroy it, and if you do, draw a card. Then place a card from your hand on the bottom of the deck. We then play 2 copies of Gigabyte. Gigabyte is a really good extender because if you control a spellcaster monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and it's a water monster, which is great to be able to use in this deck because you can use it with one of your other water monsters like Endymion to go in for a Bahamut Shark and then totally awesome, giving us a negate on the field. We then play a single copy of Ecclesia. We do play a Dogmatica package in the deck because it super helps out a lot in the consistency of this build. And this card is great because if there's a monster that's special summoned from the extract on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. And it also, on summon, lets you add a Dogmatica card from your deck to your hand, which is a great ability. We then play a single copy of Fleur-de-Lis. Fleur-de-Lis is really good as a 1-of in the deck because this card is basically a walking negate that we usually search off our copy of Ecclesia. We can also play a single copy of Maximus. Maximus is really cool as a 1-of as it helps us dump cards out of our extract. With the ability you can banish a Fusion, Synchro, Extra, or Exe, or Link monster from your graveyard to special summon this card from your hand, and also during your main phase you can activate this effect to send 2 monsters with different names from your extract to the graveyard. Also your opponent sends 2 monsters from their extract to the graveyard, but you cannot special summon monsters from the extract for the rest of the turn, but it's a really cool ability to instantly get the exact card you want out of your extract and into the graveyard. We then play a single copy of Blazing Cartesia. Blazing Cartesia is really cool as a 1-of in the build because this card is basically a walking polymerization. We then play a single copy of Incredible Ecclesia. Incredible Ecclesia is really good in the deck as a 1-of because this card is a tuner monster and it helps out a lot because you can actually tribute this card as a quick effect to special summon out a Sword Soul monster from your deck. And we do actually play a single Sword Soul monster, which is going to be a single copy of the Iris Sword Soul, which is a really cool 1-of in the deck to be able to play. It's basically a hand trap that during the main phase, if a monster whose effect is negated is on the field, quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if your opponent special summons a monster, except during the damage step, you can activate one of these effects. That they special summon it from the hand, you special summon a monster from your hand. That they special summon it from the deck, draw 2 cards, and if it's from the extract, destroy one of those monsters, special summon from the extract, which is a really cool ability. We then also play 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom's really good as a 3-of just to stop the opponent from touching the deck. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to start with a single copy of Terraforming. Terraforming is really good as a 1-of to be able to search out our copy of Secret Village of the Spellcasters. We then play a single copy of Magistus Invocation. Invocation is really good as a 1-of in the build because this card is basically polymerization for the deck and it helps out a lot to help us go in for fusion plays. We then play a single copy of Theology. Theology is really good as a 1-of because it lets us target a Magistus monster you control and equip it with a Magistus monster except a level 4 monster from your extract, graveyard, or face up from field, and if you have at least one each of a Magistus Fusion, Synchro, Exy, and a Link monster in your graveyard, then you can equip it with one non-Magistus Fusion, Synchro, Extra, Exy, or Link monster from your extract instead, which is a pretty cool ability. We then also play 2 copies of Vatra. Vatra is really good as a 2-of in the build because this card lets us target a level 4 lower Magistus monster in the graveyard and special summon it, basically being like a monster reborn for the deck. If a Magistus card in your spell and trap card zone would be destroyed by your opponent's card effect, you can banish this card from your grave instead, giving you a little bit of protection, which is really nice. We then play 2 copies of Spell Power Mastery. Spell Power Mastery is great because this card is a searcher for our copies of Endymion, which is really nice to be able to just instantly search out our copies of Endymion with this card's effect. We then play 2 copies of Trias Magistus. Trias Magistus is a really good continuous spell that I bumped down to 2 because it is searchable in the deck, but I really like this card as a 2-of because the first time each Magistus monster equipped with an equipped card would be destroyed by battle each turn, it is not destroyed, and this card has 2 awesome abilities that during your main phase, you can special summon a level 4 spellcaster monster from your hand, or you can actually send this card from face up from field to grave to special summon as many of your Magistus monsters with different names from your hand to your side of the field, which is a great effect. We then play 2 copies of Secret Village of the Spellcasters. Secret Village is great in the deck as a 2-of because this card locks our opponent down from using spell cards, because if we control a spellcaster monster, our opponent cannot activate spell cards, and if we don't control a spellcaster monster, we cannot activate spell cards. But that's totally fine because all we have to do is just normal summon out a spellcaster to our side of the field and turn this card back on. We then play 3 copies of Nadir. Nadir is definitely a 3-of to work with our Dogmatica package, and we have some really good targets to be able to send to the graveyard all of this card to basically use this card like a Rhoda for our copies of our Dogmatica cards. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get in to the traps. So for the traps, we're just going to be playing 3, and that's going to be 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Infinite Impermanence is really good as a 3-of just to stop your opponent's monster effects and also lock down entire columns of spells and traps. This card is just an amazing hand trap overall to go along with our copies of Ash Blossom to make sure that we're going to be able to stop our opponent from going into their plays. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, guys, we're going to start off with Artemis. Artemis is definitely a 2-of in the build. You don't really need 3, but this card is great in the deck because it does just require any level 4 lower spellcaster monster to make this card. If another Magistus monster is normally special summoned while you control this monster card, it has the ability that you can target one of those monsters and equip this card that you control to it, and then while this card is equipped to a monster, you can actually add a Magistus monster from your deck to your hand, and you can only use the effect of this card once per turn, which is a really cool effect. We then play a single copy of the Wondrous Magistus Witch Wardrobe. Witch Wardrobe is a good 1-of in the build because you can actually detach a material from this card to special summon a Magistus monster from your deck. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extract for the rest of the turn except Magistus monsters, and then while you control this equipped card to a monster, you can actually target one effect monster that your opponent controls and negates effects until the end of the turn, which is a really cool thing because the majority of your Magistus cards in the extract actually give your monsters bonus effects when they're equipped to monsters, which is really cool. We then play a single copy of Glass Goddess. Glass Goddess is great as a 1-of, but you really only need a single copy of this card, just like your copy of Witch Wardrobe. And this card is a really cool ability. While this card is an equip card, the equipped monster can make 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase, which is a great ability to use with this card. We then play a single copy of Bahamut Shark. Bahamut Shark is in the deck because we can easily use 2 water monsters to make this card to summon out a copy of Totally Awesome. Totally Awesome really is totally awesome in the deck because this card is a walking negate. We then play a single copy of Zoroa's Synchro Form. This card is crazy powerful and is our main boss monster we're trying to summon to the field. Because if this card is Synchro Summon, you can equip a Magistus monster from your extract to this card, and your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters with the same type, Fusion, Synchro, XE, or Link monsters as Magistus monster card in your spell and trap card zone, which basically means this card is a walking skill drain for your opponent, depending on what you're playing against, which is super cool. This card also says if this card is in your graveyard, you can actually target a Magistus card that you control, destroy it, and if you do, special summon this card, which is a great ability to instantly get this card back on your side of the field. We then play a single copy of the Magistus Dragon. You never actually summon out this card. I always just use this card as an equip spell, basically, because while this card is equipped as it is a equip card, the equipped monster cannot be destroyed by your opponent's spell and trap effects, which is a pretty cool ability, but you never really summon this card out to your side of the field. We then play a single copy of Borreload Savage Dragon. This card is just a great walking negate that we can summon to our side of the field, because usually you're going to get a copy of Artemis in the graveyard extremely easily in this build. We then play a single copy of the Cloud Beast. Cloud Beast is really good as a 1-of to send to our graveyard off of any of our Dogmatica cards, because this card has the ability, if it's sent to the graveyard, you can target a face-up card that your opponent controls and return it back to the hand. We then play a single copy of Lulurath. Lulurath is the best target to be able to use with any of our Dogmatica cards, because this card has a crazy powerful effect that if this card is in the graveyard because it's sent there this turn, you can special summon a light spellcaster type monster from your hand or deck whose attack equals its own defense, which is great to be able to summon out cards like your copies of your Ecclesias or your copies of Cartesia, which is just really cool. Speaking of Cartesia, we also play a single copy of the Dusk Dragon. Dusk Dragon is great because we can summon this card out to our side of the field if we want to, but you can also send this card to the graveyard to get its bonus ability, which is really nice. If you do decide to summon it out to your side of the field, you get to send a level 6 or higher light or dark monster from your deck or extract to the graveyard, which is a really cool ability to send any of our really good targets to the graveyard, but this card is definitely a 1-of in the build. We then play a single copy of Titaniclad. Titaniclad is great because of its graveyard ability, that it actually lets us use the effect that if this card is in the graveyard because it's sent there this turn during the end phase, you can actually add to your hand or special summon a copy of a Dogmatica monster, which is a really cool ability. We then play a single copy of the Spell Spirit. Spell Spirit is great in the deck as a 1-of because this card is basically like a snatch steal, because while this card is an equip card, the equipped monster gains 1,000 attack and defense during the main phase, and quick effect, you can actually target one other face-up monster on the field and equip this card that you control to it, and if it becomes equipped to an opponent's monster, by this effect, you can take control of that opponent's monster, and it also negates its abilities, which is a pretty cool ability. We then finally play a single copy of Garua. Garua, if it's sent to the graveyard, lets us draw a card, which is why we play this card as a 1-of in the build. So, that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. This deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played Magistus before, you should definitely give this deck a try because it's a really fun deck. I really like the play style of it, especially mixing all these different spellcasters together to make one really cool deck, because you mix the Invoke cards, the Witchcrafter cards, and the Endymion cards all together with our Dogmatica package, and you get some really cool plays. So, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.